What's going on, everybody? Happy Sunday. Happy Sunday. We're about 2 weeks post Karen Read victory verdict. And there's still a lot of conversation here that I'm seeing that is, like I said, post Karen Read verdict. And welcome in, everybody. This is the first episode. We're cracking the channel today of the Sunday 617. And what we're going to devote this show to is continuing to focus on local cases here in the Massachusetts area, exposing corruption and other things that may go on that we need to bring attention to. So I have not forgotten about my local audience. We've cultivated this audience over the last 2 years surrounding the Karen Read case, but it doesn't end here. There is a lot more things to take care of and a lot more things to do here in the state of Massachusetts. But I want to welcome in my special guest host this morning, joining me live via satellite from some of the backwoods of Connecticut. We have my friend here, Jason Broyles, and you can find him on X at Not Haley Walbrecht. Jason, right. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. You definitely would refer to my house as the backwoods today, given that, not only did I host a party for teenage boys to watch the UFC last night in the backyard for my son and his friends, but in between matches, they had their own card that they had. And I was thinking at one point that I probably shouldn't be allowed to supervise children because when I was trying to decide between telling them to stop punching each other in the face or what I should do, I just ended up by filming instead. So that, it's your natural reaction is, oh, I see something, I'm going to film it. That was me. No one got hurt. It was all in good fun though. Boys were being boys. And it was a great card last night and kind of an amazing UFC. They don't always go off so well, but last night was full of turmoil. So it was interesting. I was up very late, or should I say early, but I am happy to be here. I woke right up to come down and do this. I wouldn't miss it for the world.
Yeah, we're gonna crack this wide open today. Again, I had to continue something here local. I mean, everybody's seeing that I am going to get back into the Brian Koberger case. It's work that I feel that it's unfinished on this channel. I started following that case in November of 22 when it first started, and it's definitely going to be a focus, I think, during the week here. But if we can devote the Sunday shows to the local folks here and local cases, and like I said in my opening, it doesn't stop with Karen Read. There's many, many things here that we need to accomplish in the state of Massachusetts. So again, I'm going to let the audience guide me. If I'm a local guy, then we'll continue to do local. If they want national cases, then we'll talk about those as well. But today is Sunday, and we're here on the Sunday 617. So, Jason, I want to get started here. This morning, I woke up to a little bit of a change in Karen Read's profile. She's been very silent. She's been caught out, by Fox News taking her trash out about a week ago. Big story there. Just living normal life. But I woke up this morning and I saw that she updated her Facebook profile cover to that victory photo inside of Norfolk Superior Court. And it's nice to see her up and about. Nice to see that, she's going to go on to do some great things. We heard about a potential movie that is in the works. What do you think here, Jason? You think it's just a lot of time for her to start kind of coming down and returning to normal?
I do. And I think it should be true in any case, but in this case, we all know how intimately she was involved with her defense and how much time they spent planning. Nick Rocco released some behind the scenes photos and videos yesterday, including like when they were planning out the closing argument. It's actually super interesting. I think it's his new Twitter account at Nikki Haircuts. They're on there, and you can see them like with the note cards laid out on the ground and having a discussion about where should we insert this video. And you can just see Karen is right in the middle and participating in that discussion. As we know, she has every step of the way of her defense. So not just did she bear the stress of being a defendant and all of these other things, this has been a full-time job for her, advocating for herself. As much as we've all been out there doing it every day, she's been doing it more than all of us in terms of the time that she spent. She's had to live this. So I'd love for her to take as much time off as she likes, and I'm super excited for whatever's to come,
Yeah, I am as well. And, it was cool to see that they're working in ink, or basically inked a deal on a movie. I'm very curious to see how that's going to all turn out. And, whatever Karen Reed decides to do and go on with her life, she deserves that peace. Obviously we still have a lot of work here to find justice for John O'Keefe. And I think that, freeing Karen Reed is the first step into doing that. And I'm still urging, if they are watching, maybe they are watching, I don't know. The FBI still needs to get involved. I know that Alan Jackson, on the steps of that courthouse when they came out and taught in that victory celebration, and Karen came down and briefly talked, Alan Jackson said, no, this case is closed. But it doesn't necessarily mean that the feds can't get in and reinvestigate this and open up that investigation and start turning their heads. I made a comment the other day about someone popped up on one of my posts, and I said, now it's time to turn our heads back inside 34 Fairview, start peeling back that curtain and looking in.
Now, and I know, so one of the things is, obviously, I think you probably share this experience in terms of we've maybe seen more things than others in terms of behind the scenes things that we couldn't talk about, that weren't out there. Aiden yesterday posted another letter from the federal government that was never shared, that during the trial, that was about 3 weeks before the announcement the investigation was over, and it very clearly said this investigation is ongoing. And that letter was after post Josh Levy in the new administration. We don't know what changed, and everyone's taking it at their word in that 3 weeks that it was over. But what does that even mean? Like, what are the semantics of that? Does it mean that they're not currently investigating? Did they pause it? So all of this talk, like nobody knows the answers of that. But when you say turn yourself back into 34 Fairview, I think a lot of people don't know, like, until maybe Turtle Boy posted the picture of the garage. I don't think they know how extensively they did that. And now we've seen the video of Alan Jackson on the lawn yelling, so to see where you could hear it from Karen's bedroom.
Yeah.
I've seen a video of Alan Jackson walking through the basement and, in a coordinated manner. So we know that at least Karen's team and their investigators went in with the cooperation of the homeowners at 34 Fairview, and they have done some kind of investigation of the space and preliminary investigation and whatever else. And it'd be interesting to see how much of that they shared with the feds and back in the other direction. So, or do now.
Yeah, no, I agree. But let's get into today's show. We have something very important that I want to start bringing up and talking about. Let me just share my screen here with everybody. So today, again, is the first episode of the 617, Sunday 617 here. And, I was sitting in the barber chair about a week ago. I came up with this idea. The logo came to mind. I said, let's see if we can make it happen. And here we are. So again, I want to thank Jason for joining me on this kind of inaugural episode here of the 617. So let's get into some important things and something that I don't want to be lost in all of this. And this was an important factor that I was mulling over the other day with someone, and talking about that buffer zone and how important it was to be outside in that buffer zone, being able to be out in front of that court and watching the Reed team and Karen herself come out and step out almost like a Hollywood movie down into this buffer zone, to be close to the supporters that have supported her over the last, 2.5 years since this cracked, Aiden Carney cracking the case, and being able to be down there in this area. This is so impactful. And, it needs to be talked about. Let me just talk a little bit about this. And then, so protesters sue Karen Reed judge in what they want. Four supporters of the accused murderer Karen Reed are suing Norfolk Superior Court Judge Beverly Cannoni for implementing a buffer zone outside the Dedham courthouse meant to keep protesters at bay during the Karen Reed second murder trial. Jury selection in Reed's retrial. Obviously, this is a hashed article here, but the lawsuit seeks to block enforcement of the buffer zone. Special prosecutor Hank Brennan requests that Cannoni reinstate the buffer zone, and said that the demonstrating could be intimidating or influence to jurors, which we found out, Jason, that none of that even was, it didn't even impact them in their deliberations. Several jurors have spoken up now and said, yeah, honestly, we couldn't even really hear anybody that was out there, because they brought us in to the back of the court and we were probably outside seconds before we transitioned into court. So it says the Center of the American Liberty for Randazzi Legal Group filed a lawsuit in federal court on the behalf of pro-Karen Read demonstrators Jason Grant, Allison Taggart, Lisa Peterson, and Samantha Lyons. And I have a special guest I want to actually bring in that was the forefront of making this impact happen here. Let's bring him into the program. I want to welcome in Jason Grant. Welcome to the Sunday 617.
Good morning.
How are you?
Jason, Brian, good. How you guys doing?
Good. I like that the Jasons are taking over the show.
The two Jasons.
Brian, you're gonna have to put us up at top and you down at the bottom.
Yeah, I'm gonna bring you guys up top.
There you go.
We outnumber you.
We got a little bit of an echo, but we're going to try to make it through this. Jason, again, I want to say phenomenal job at getting this lawsuit done. Talk to us. What spawned this idea to make sure that Free Karen Read supporters could be down outside of that courthouse in support, in celebration for this victory, this not guilty victory? What started all this?
Well, we knew last time, the last trial, that Judge Bev wouldn't even hear Mark on the first Buffah Zone. He was in court and she wouldn't even let him speak. So then he took it to the state Supreme Court and then they denied it there. So this time, late last year, we started planning on, because I'm right down the street from the courthouse. And so we just protesting, go out like once a week or so and go down there all through the winter and protesting against corruption and just Judge Bev specific, nothing to do with Karen's case or anything. So we're just protesting against Bev and then the corruption in Norfolk County, and which allowed us, when she did the new Buffah Zone again for this trial, to go right into federal court and not have to go into the state court. And then we got a different result this time out of the federal court instead of the state court. It took us a couple of times to go back and forth, but eventually this First Circuit Court of Appeals agreed with us and sent it back down, and then we got what we got.
Yeah, I have to say that, I mean, that's how courts work, and especially in Norfolk County, because you can't count on the local court or the succeeding courts beyond it, the Mass Court of Appeals or the Supreme Judicial Court to act expeditiously, especially it's almost like the thin blue line of police officers. It's really hard to get them to rule against one of their judges, right? And that's how the court system is structured in Mass, where the SJC sits at the top of the pyramid and they run the other courts. So it's not like it's this really is a same side battle. Although there are some great judges in Massachusetts, but we've seen the alternative to that as well. I really loved this whole concept when it started. I've been following Mark Randazza for years and years and years prior to this, communicating with him. He's a great guy. Mark Trammell from Liberty Center, like the people that have done this, the lawyers that have put in the work to do this, literally, it's a labor of love. I mean, sure, they try to get donations to defer some of the costs. I know that I donated to Liberty Center, and I hope others did as well, the Center for American Liberty. But it really is, they don't recoup what they put out in terms of legal work. It's not even close. And
Mark was great too. Mark and John too, the other lawyer. They were both amazing.
Yeah, and they do this, it's literally a gift that they give us. It's amazing.
Yeah, because you guys saw how the first couple of weeks of the trial were down there. No one could be around the court. You couldn't even be across the street. You couldn't even walk by with your camera out. And there were if you walk by more than too many times, they'd tell you to get out of there. And then walking in and out to like silence. And I couldn't even imagine how the verdict was they're coming down if the Buffah Zone stayed up and then they came out to silence and no one out there. It would have been totally different.
Yeah, I mean, it's such an icon, like it's such a victorious and iconic thing. I was just thinking the other day, if that never happens, if this lawsuit never won, how different it would be out there. Karen Read walking out with her team, and there's just no one there. We have to be down, be down the block,
right?
And it would be wild. It would be.
And watching on TV from inside the courthouse, when you hear the crowd cheer too, like that was amazing. Like it was insane how you could hear it through the TV in the courtroom.
having been in that crowd, it didn't, you're in the middle of like processing all these emotions and everything, but having been in that crowd, it struck me more watching it back from the courtroom side, because you're in the crowd, you get caught up in the moment, and it's amazing, and like a movie, like you said, Brian, but I cried again when I watched the verdict and I heard it read from inside the courtroom and heard the crowd, and I was like, that was us, and that's what we accomplished. And when you hear the jurors now, like Paula Prado talking about it and saying like, we knew that there was something going on, security was high, and they'd talked to us several times about harassment or whatever else, but we didn't understand the gravity of this until we delivered our verdict, and then we heard what we heard. It's amazing.
Yeah, it gave me goosebumps like watching that video over with them in the courtroom. And then one of the awesome ones was when John DePietro comes walking out to the booze, and then Andy comes behind him in the chairs. It was just it was amazing to be in the crowd.
It really was when they did that. Because it was back to back. That was also why you're like, this is like a movie, because it was like planned. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, the villain comes out and the villain comes out and everyone boos, and then the hero appears just above them on the steps and everyone cheers. It was great.
It was really great.
Yeah, it was like a Hollywood ending.
It was the true Hollywood ending. Jason, before I let you go here, again, I want to thank you for your time and popping up and just letting us know, how this all happened. You made a significant impact. I know I was just recently talking to Nathan Reed, and the Reeds are ever so thankful for you guys pressing forward that lawsuit, making this happen, because again, it was a true cementing moment in history in the state of Massachusetts, and allowing the supporters to jump up and be close because we've all been we've been here for a very long time, almost over 2 years, and it was our God-given right to be down there, and you guys made it happen. So I also want to thank Allison. Please pass this along to her. From
she tried to come on. She was trying to come on, but she's been sick all week, so she couldn't make it.
Yeah,
and then and also Lisa and Sam too. The four of us, they're all part of it. They're out there with me. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And just tell Allison, phenomenal job documenting and photographing history.
Yeah, Allison's been out there like every single day through both trials, like taking pictures. She has so many pictures. She did an amazing job documenting.
Yeah, it's amazing stuff. Again, this is Jason Grant. He was one of the heads of the Karen Reed lawsuit to get the buffer zone restriction. Basically put that to bed and allow everybody for standing down here. So, Jason, great job. Go enjoy your Sunday. Tell Allison that we hope that she feels better. And
he's watching downstairs. So.
Pat yourself on the back. You did an amazing job.
Yep, Brian. Before you let him go, I actually wanted to say one thing.
Sure.
Having gotten to know Jason and Allison throughout the course of this, great people, but one of my moments, right? We talked about that moment when the verdict was read and you could hear the crowd in the background. From that day, from being in the crowd, one of my moments was when the verdict was read and we were cheering, and then some of us were sobbing, and it was a very emotional moment. And prior to the crowd was cheering, and prior to Karen and her team coming out, I was looking around and I saw Allison on the other side of the barricade. This is just post the verdict being read, and she's doing her job, right? She's taking pictures of the crowd, and I had tears streaming down my face, and I looked at her, and as she was taking the pictures, she had tears streaming down her face. And that is like one of those indelible moments that I'll never forget, because it really represents all of these people who are coming out, not only protesting or standing up for our rights or demonstrating, but also doing work on behalf of this family and doing things. So to kind of watch her dual role, she never missed a beat in her job as photographer, but I watched her feeling exactly how I was feeling in that moment. And if I had more brains, I would have turned my camera toward her to capture that moment, because it was an amazing scene, and it's burned into my brain. So Allison, if you are watching, that was amazing. And Jason, Allison, and your co-defendants there, thank you guys so much. Or your co-player.
Allison was behind, and Dina too. Allison and Dina were behind the barricades, and they were helping with the crowds and everything. them two were both good back there with the crowds and stuff. But,
Yeah, it was amazing.
So before we go, Jason, before I let you go, Nathan Reed in the chat just says, kudos to you, Jason and co.
Hey,
And he
Nathan.
also adds, without your efforts, the 18th would have looked and felt quite different. So he
right?
said,
I can't even imagine what it would have looked like, the anticlimactic kind of. But all right,
So-
thank you. Thanks, everyone.
yeah, Jason, go enjoy your Sunday. And thanks for popping up really quick on
My
on the
pleasure,
Sunday
anytime.
7 with us.
All right, I wish Allison wish she could have been here. Thank you.
It's okay.
Thank
Take
you.
care, buddy. Bye-bye.
See you, bud.
Wow. Good stuff, right?
Yeah,
Great stuff.
amazing.
Great stuff. You know, really good stuff. I mean, without that happening, like, you know, Nathan Reed just said, the 18th would have looked starch out there. You know, it would have just been, you know, I said it has to end this way. It's got to be this way.
It did. And don't you think that might have been the point? Like the actual point of the buffer zone? Because we know, aside from the affidavit that we got from the foreman in the first jury, which all of the other jurors dispute, we know that they didn't hear the people outside. We know that there wasn't a problem. The jurors came in through the back door. The buffer zone could have simply encompassed closing down the back of the courthouse and not allowing people to traverse on that street temporarily while the jury moved or whatever. There was no actual reason to have this buffer zone.
Yeah.
It did not for the stated reasons, at least, not to protect the jurors, because there was ways to very simply do that without all of this nonsense. So for them to do this, for when the first jury admitted they didn't even hear it, it's almost like what we see now, right? Where we have the jurors who are out, who've given statements, Paula Prado, the foreman of the jury, they're getting mercilessly attacked on social media by the antis, right? And the court releases a statement when they impound the jurors' names for the next, for indefinitely. And in it, they cite this potential for harassment or questioning the integrity of their service. So that's the reasoning Judge Bev gives for impounding their names permanently, while we sit here and we watch the antis attack them online and actually question the integrity of their jury service. And so she's going to do this thing where we're going to impound the names permanently in order to prevent this from happening. Meanwhile, it's happening and they do nothing to stop it.
Yeah.
That's kind of how the buffer zone is. It's all jumbled up. Like the reasoning was wrong. I think it was literally to deny Karen Reed that moment. I think that's
of course it was 100,000%, Jason. Of course it was. Of course it was. And, they didn't win. They didn't win.
No,
we
they
won.
didn't.
We won. So that was a good victory. All right, let's
Against
talk
the
about tone deafness here. We had a statement the other day from the State Police Union, and we'll bring this up and talk about this. Complete tone deafness here. So listen, they don't get it, Jason. They just don't get it. So State Police Union on Karen Reed verdict, the death of John O'Keefe has been investigated with great scrutiny. I'm going to read from this article, how we say it here in Massachusetts. So soon after Karen Reed was cleared of murder and manslaughter charges, the union representative, Mass State Police troopers, sergeants took to social media to defend the agency's investigation into the death of Reed's boyfriend, John O'Keefe. The State Police Association from Massachusetts said its members have faced numerous attacks and accusations since the start of the Reed's lengthy trial. Jurors Wednesday acquitted Reed of her most serious charges and only found her guilty of drunk driving, bringing an end to the criminal investigation fueled by online speculation for more than 3 years. Quote, careers have been lost, families have been devastated, and many lives have changed forever, the State Police Union said in a statement Saturday, also sending condolences to O'Keefe's family. The quote, and they add, the jury has spoken and will remain respectful of the process. The union added, even if it's defended the investigation that identified Reed as a prime suspect. 2 state police troopers were ultimately disciplined in connection with the case, and a third, lead investigator Michael Proctor, was fired for his conduct during the investigation. However, prosecutors and the state police have pushed back on all cover-up claims. Another quote here says, as to our current and former members, continuing the subject of baseless accusations, the State Police Association said it is important to remember that investigations into the death of John O'Keefe have been investigated with great scrutiny by both members of the State Police Internal Affairs and the FBI. Now, the quote here: to date, there has been yet any information that this investigation was compromised in any way. We remain steadfast in our commitment to representing the men and women of the State Police Association and forever grateful for the work our members do every day to serve the citizens of the Commonwealth. Jason, I mean, are we the tone deafness? Read the room. Read the room here. There's still, Jason is still putting accusations out there that Karen is guilty of this crime.
It's true. And you know, I do try to, in my head, you know, we all lump them together, and I try to remember, like, this is the union, and the union is there to fight on behalf of their officers. And unions are often in positions where they make ridiculous statements that are gaslighting and just completely defy the contrary evidence everywhere. So it doesn't surprise me that that statement comes out from a union. But in this case, it's hard to tell whether it came from the state police themselves or the union, because you watch, like yesterday, they post a recruiting ad on Twitter. They are the most tone deaf organization I've ever seen. And I'm looking down, I'm reading down the ad, and I read 189 comments. In one comment, it wasn't even pro them. It was just like, oh, that's interesting. Thanks for letting me know. Right. Like, it was just like this lukewarm. It was the one comment that wasn't people saying, like, and in those comments, it was great because the representations weren't just from the Karen Reed trial. They were talking about Enrique. They were talking about. So as you see that, I think the tide has turned, and they haven't been able to figure out how to handle this from the moment that this trial started, or no, from the moment that Aiden started covering this trial and built this movement. The other side doesn't know what to do. I mean, they framed him and arrested him to get him to shut up, and it didn't work. They tried to implement a buffer zone, and there was 3,000 people standing right across from that courthouse. This is something they have to pay much closer attention to. Things are different now. This is not the Norfolk County of 10 years ago. This isn't the Whitey Bulger era. We've paid off every law enforcement officer and court official. Like, this is the people are taking the power back. And I'm not talking about, it's not as extreme as the American Revolution or the Boston Tea Party or any of these things that are happening there, but the people have had enough. You don't get 3,000 people to show up on a sidewalk for any other criminal case, including, you know, some of the worst cases. So it really is this scenario where, like, they're not getting it. They're not getting the message, but they're gonna, because things are changed. Things are different now.
I love this comment. And it's really weird what YouTube's doing now with these handles. They're doing @ handles, which is like strange.
I noticed. I was trying to fix it myself at the beginning of the show, but
yeah, I think there's a setting in there, you know, for the folks at home. If you want to try to change that, you might have to just kind of cycle through and see what kind of settings there are. But anyway, Hank's Broken Pencil says unions should not protect those that put people's lives at risk. I love that. And I really do love that. And I think that's a perfect statement given the situation. You know, and you know, Gail is saying what they are doing to Aiden isn't right, and that's completely true. But again, you know, this is, you know, I gotta say, it concerns me now that, you know, Karen is free, acquitted of all these charges. You know, I think the heaviness of all of this is going to really land, I think, with Aiden, because they have that, you know, he's going to be facing multiple charges here. I know he has some of the most wonderful lawyers that are going to, back him and defend him for all these frivolous charges. But it's like, I almost feel like there's bigger pressure now. Like, let's go get him. You know, we couldn't get her, so let's get him. What are your thoughts on that, Jason?
Yeah, I agree. People can't. I'm under no illusion that we're, you know, at his next court hearing, we're not going to see 3,000 people on the streets in Dedham. I will say he fills every courtroom he goes in every time. It's not a, there's no question there, but he needs our help more than ever. And there is this really real risk. I mean, frankly, at some points, even during her trial, I think that I'm sorry that I froze there, but I think that they probably wanted to put him away even more than they wanted to put her away already. And now that, save that they needed a public win, which they didn't get. He's in much greater jeopardy now, because now this is like their last chance to justify all of this nonsense. And it's continuing. We see with Rich Schiffer and Eric D there in Canton. Eric D. I can't say his name. Eric D. Literally, I met Eric out in front of the Canton police department my motto is, when I'm in town, I'm boots on the ground. And I met Eric at a stand out in front of the Canton Police Department, and that guy literally would just stand there with a sign that says "I heart Canton."
Yeah.
And now he's facing witness intimidation charges for standing there and holding that sign. It's ridiculous.
The Ducks, so Jason. The Ducks.
They haven't gotten the memo yet, but they're gonna.
Yeah. Rich Schiffer, the Duckgate. You know
him
what I mean?
As well, yeah.
Duckies, little duckies.
Right. How many times? How many times are we going to go through this?
Exactly. Let me get to this. Blessed Mom from Texas, $10 says, Brian, appreciate all your hard work. You're handsome and smart. Karen Reed is free. We have to help Aiden. I'm in Texas, but I'll be there soon. That's awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate that kind comment. And also I want to say, Gwen, thanks for becoming a new member of the channel and supporting the channel here. Listen, I just want to kind of point this out, because I'm seeing a recurring theme over the last couple of shows here. And, listen, I've cultivated, and I'm sorry, Jason, that I have to do this.
No, I don't
care. Cultivated a very good audience in chat here. Okay. And I'm seeing this trend now of people coming in and saying, oh, this show is going on right now, or I don't like the specific guest that's on the panel right now. Look, you don't have to watch. It's okay. You can turn off the channel. You can go watch another video, whatever you need to do. But I want to make sure that we ultimately show respect to the people that Jason's giving his time here on Sunday to come do this and co-host with me today and crack open this new theme, this new show that I want to try to cultivate here on my channel. So I want everybody to just give him the utmost respect. I appreciate his time, but if you don't appreciate his time, it's okay. You don't have to watch. I don't go into other chats and say, hey, my show's at XX time, or come watch me or anything. I'm very respectful of people and a guest. And if someone is a channel that I like and they have a guest on that I don't care for, I just won't watch. So let's be respectful. These people, a lot of the people that come up on this panel donate their time because they give a shit about everything that's going on here, or maybe specific things that are going on around the world. So, Jason, I'm sorry I had to do that.
No.
But I just
so first of all,
I
was in full screen mode, so whatever happened, I missed it.
Yeah.
But I actually maybe am one of the few guests that I don't care at all. I mean, let your chat go. I just wish someone told me, because I'd be responding in the comment. Me, and I learned a long time ago that you really can't offend me or hurt my feelings in any way or do any of that unless I already respect you. You know what I mean? So, this has happened before, where we get these troll campaigns where people get together and they say, oh, he's appearing on this show and we're going to show up at this time.
Yeah.
I love it. I would just go back and forth with them all day. As a future segment idea, what you should do is you should save them all.
We'll read mean tweets.
Yes, save them all to the end of the episode, and then I'll respond to each one.
I love
to respond live. We could do a show. Oh my, we should do a show. A get your grievances out show.
Yeah.
And come in the chat and give us your worst, and then we'll just live respond.
It's not a bad, that may be a Sunday 617 episode. We'll have
please invite me on that one, because
we'll have to stay tuned, but can't we all just get along? Anyway, Jeannie, thank you so much. She says Aiden deserves all the support possible. FTB, Free Turtle Boy. Appreciate that. Thanks for the English pounds. We got the people across the pond watching us today. All right, let's transition a little bit here. Back in the news, Jason, back in the news is Brian Walsh. And I don't want people to forget about this, because his trial will be taking place in October. I'm going to work very, very hard on getting my press credentials so I can at least be in there for a little bit during the trial. And surprisingly enough, Jason, guess what? The murder suspect, Brian Walsh, wants his Google searches on the body disposal suppressed from the trial. Gee, I wonder why that is, Jason.
Yep. It is it's really unbelievable. And what's amazing though is the CW opened the door for this, right? The Commonwealth really created this situation in this trial where it's not just going to be this case, it's going to be any case that had come through Norfolk County. I'm guessing that there are people whose cases have already been disposed who are going to be making motions for new trials. You're going to have all of this stuff. Anything Proctor worked on is going to get scrutinized. There's going to be an attorney somewhere that says, let me see if I can make something out of this, you know?
Yeah.
So it doesn't surprise me that Brian Walsh is taking that tack, or that his lawyers are. It's definitely the right step for his team to take.
Exactly. Let me read a little bit from this. This is from Boston.com. I'm sorry, Mass Live. Let's check this out. It says, Brian Walsh, a man charged with killing and dismembering his wife in Cohasset, wants to bar evidence of Google searches about, quote, the best ways to dispose of a body at his trial on the basis that investigators did not use a search warrant to obtain it, according to court filings. Investigators found that Google searches on his son, this guy is so he's such a monster that he went to his son's iPad and made these searches. He says on his son's iPad, but his lawyers argue that they obtained the evidence improperly without consent. In the initial days of the police investigation, when Brian Walsh's wife, 39-year-old Anna Walsh, was merely a missing person, he agreed to let law enforcement review his family's electronics for messaging, according to court filings. He did not consent to allowing police access to the internet searches histories on the device, his lawyers argue. Walsh's attorney now assert that the Google searches and any subsequent searches, including some of the with warrants, were fruits of the illegal and unauthorized searches and are immiscible in court. Let's see here. I want to go down and find, let's see. The internet searches were, which were made between January 1st and the 13th, 2023, include questions of, guess what, Jason? How long before a body starts to smell? I mean, you can't make this up. Where have we heard how long before, Jason?
Yep, it's crazy.
Oh my God, these people, they all run in the same circle. And then another one, how long for someone to be missing to inherent? Can you be charged with murder without a body? Can identification be made on partial remains? And how to clean blood from a wooden floor? It says Walsh's lawyers wrote in new court filings that detectives violated the constitutional rights by obtaining this evidence improperly. The defense team also questions the validity of the subsequent search warrants, including use to obtain evidence against Walsh. One was prepared by the disgraced former state police trooper, and what is the name, Jason? Michael Proctor, who has led the investigation in the Karen Reed murder trial. Oy vey, Jason. Oy vey. Do we see problems here with Michael Proctor being the lead? How do you see this thing shaking out? I mean, literally, you handed your iPad to investigators and, oh, look at all this incriminating evidence that's on it. How do they keep this out? How do they suppress this? I don't think they're going to be able to.
I don't think they are either, but based on the comment that I already made, they're going to try, and everyone else is too. Everything Michael Proctor touched. That's the interesting part about this story, right? Because you look at this, and I'm sure that most reasonable people on our side are like, "Oh yeah, this guy definitely did it," right? Like we're starting from a pro prosecution position on this one, right? And you look at that, and then you say, "But this is the problem. We've now created this situation where we are giving them reasonable doubt. We're creating this, or where we're coming up with this plan."
Yeah.
That the CW, who is going to just keep pushing these things and pushing them to their own credibility. And that's when this starts to affect us. So those motions now, like at first people may be like, they're ridiculous, but as they mount and as you see things, our good friend Jen Root just posted this morning or yesterday, sometime overnight, yesterday maybe, about how Michael Proctor was the one who told her stepmother that just en route had shot the valet attendant in Boston and that he was refusing to drop his gun. He never had a gun. He didn't shoot the valet attendant. That was a wild, errant shot from a police officer. But Michael Proctor stood up there and is the one who told her stepmother these things that were absolutely untrue. They were completely fabricated right from the start. So this isn't new. This is going to get uncovered in case after case that he worked, and it's going to get and we're going to see it in court again and again. When he's crying in his backyard, giving an interview and doing this, and feel bad for me, and I just made this one mistake saying this language. This is going to be the drug. This could be the drug lab over and over and over again. The drug, the scandals in mass, because you have this. It's just going to keep coming back.
Yeah. You're going to find a lot of this, I think, as they dig in, and maybe they don't dig in, maybe they don't dig in, which is crazy. I mean, my opinion on all of this, Brian Walsh, that guy fucking killed his wife. That guy killed his wife. But there could be other cases that happen that Proctor's tied to. And then we find out about more doctored evidence, which is scary, completely scary. And I love this, says Calico says, if they're ruled out, it's all Proctor's fault. And I completely, agree with that. And I just want to get to this. Blessed Mom from Texas says, Jason, sending my love to you, sir. Thanks for all your hard work. Sorry, I didn't say hi in my other chat.
So. Oh, I thank you. I love this. Actually, Brian, this really works out, right? Somebody thanks me by sending $5 to you. It's a weird, no, I'm just kidding. Thank you so much, Blessed Mom for Texas. I love that. And, I appreciate the support. I don't know what I'm being supported for because, again, I wasn't watching chat, but I do. I'm happy to be here, and this is the best place to be on a Sunday.
Thank you. Deborah, thank you so much for the 20 on Cash App. I appreciate that. So, again, this is a case that I'll definitely be watching. His trial is set for October, and just kind of backing up, in a previous hearing, his lawyers, meaning Walsh's lawyers, did, once we found out, and this was in trial 1, all the disparaging text messages that Michael Proctor said about Karen Reed, we heard them bring in and try to bring in that testimony into Brian Walsh's case, because why not? As a defense lawyer, why not try to bring that in and help your client? Again, I don't think the fuck guy killed his wife. I think he's going to have a hard time getting through this and seeing, getting through of a jury of 12. But, again, I thought it was very interesting as a defense tactic to bring that in and say, look, we know what's going on in the Karen Reed case with Michael Proctor. What's to say that activity is not happening in our case either?
I think that's an important observation, because one of the things that I do, having followed this genre for so long, I watched the OJ trial. The whole concept is that I'm doing this because I'm watching the lawyering both ways. You know what I mean? Like, for me, I'm a fan of the legal process and the lawyering in court. And so that's what I am generally watching these cases for. They're generally not in my backyard. They're generally, you know what I mean? Yeah. But it is a thing. So when I see that, you have to say any good defense lawyer is going to do that. That doesn't mean that I support Eric Walsh, or that I think this is a good thing, but it definitely is a good lawyering tactic to do, and they should continue. So
yeah, of course. Scooter, thanks for the $5. Real quick, Lauren, my friend Lauren, she says, Brian, tell the story of how I think Anna was supposed to sit next to me on the plane. So here's the story. Let's see. New Year's Eve, the next day, Anna Walsh is supposed to be on the plane flying back to Washington, D.C. My friend Lauren is up here visiting her parents in Massachusetts. She gets on a flight. The flight is supposed to be full, and she sits down, and the seat next to her is empty. Now, again, we can't think that we don't know if it was supposed to be Anna Walsh. Maybe it's someone that just missed their plane, but the circumstances and the timing, because she was supposed to be, I think, on a flight at that time, is really eerie. I mean, that could have literally been where Anna was supposed to sit. And Lauren's told that story on the channel, and maybe I'm forgetting a few details, Lauren, if I am, but it's such strange and so weird.
Yeah, very, that's very crazy.
Strange. Yeah. All right, let's move on here. Sandra Birchmore, there's been news in Sandra Birchmore's case that recently has surfaced. And let me bring up my presentation here. So Sandra Birchmore, accused killer moves to add death penalty expert to legal team. And this has been the most, and this is Matthew Farwell from Boston 10, says Matthew Farwell faces charges of killing a witness or victim for which he could be sentenced to death if he's convicted. Says the former Massachusetts police officer accused of killing Sandra Birchmore after grooming her for years has asked to add a new lawyer who specializes in death penalty cases to his team. Matthew Farwell, a Stoughton police detective, on Tuesday filed a motion to have Kimberly C. Stevens added to his team. Stevens is a senior Capital Resource Counsel based at a federal public defender's office in Tennessee. According to her website, she represented, well, here we go. Here's a prime candidate, Dylan Roof, the gunman who motivated by racism killed 9 black members of a historic Charleston, South Carolina church and 3 federal inmates who remain on death row after President Joe Biden commuted dozens of other sentences. Farwell faced a charge of killing a witness or victim for which he could be sentenced to death. If he's convicted, he has pled not guilty. Again, it has a lot of the case. If you haven't read about Sandra's case, and I'm sure a lot of you all have and know about her case, but it just goes into the history of her case here in the article. I don't know, adding a death penalty lawyer, trying to shake up his defense team. And listen, Dylan Roof, probably not someone that I would want to be associated, but I guess if you're facing the death penalty, you gotta reach out and get what you want and what you can get. Where do you see this going, Jason?
I don't know. I mean, the likelihood of, we saw this in the Zarnev case, right? Like the likelihood of there being, even though it's a federal case and the death penalty is still on the table, unlike Massachusetts, is it really like we don't really. Capital punishment has been slowed down to the point in most states in this country and in the federal system that you're almost guaranteed that a death sentence is going to be a sentence of life in prison, in terms of the fact that even if you get sentenced to it, the odds of it getting carried out in the federal system and from a jurisdiction in which the death penalty is illegal on the state level, I don't see it happening either way. But I mean, I do see this case and the heinous acts that this officer committed being a potential catalyst to overturn the death penalty ban, based on how egregious this entire case is. I mean, they basically, and it's not just Sandra. There are other victims of these people along the way, but essentially they destroyed her life and then they took her life. And there's something so obscene about that if they did bring the death penalty back, even if they said we're going to make it an exception and we're actually going to carry it out in the event that he gets convicted in this case, I wouldn't lose a wink of sleep about it.
Yeah. Yeah. People have to remember there are a lot of integrating officers that have been involved in all these cases that just keep turning the theme through all of this.
Yep.
And it's pretty scary. And they all need to be flushed out. They all need to be flushed out and brought to the forefront of this and called out and lose their jobs, just like Michael Proctor. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm very disappointed. There should have been 2 other officers that lost their jobs in this, Tully and Bukaki. They should be gone right alongside with Proctor. They were there. They were part of the investigation. Bukaki was Proctor's superior and took place in those text messages along and allowed this behavior to happen in Karen. And I'm going obviously talking about Karen Reed's case. And then you have Tully as well that knew about all this activity. Those 2 officers should be on the chopping block. And I'm telling you, it's scary that they're still running around in our community policing situations here in Massachusetts.
Yeah, investigating. Also, still investigate. Not in the case. I think Tully's been somewhat reassigned, but I don't think it was a demotion. I think it was a lateral move. But you look at, I think they moved him to be a full-time aid investigator, actually, if you ask me. They haven't said exactly what role he's working, but I believe that not only should they have been fired, that some of them definitely should have handcuffs on their own wrists. You know what I mean? And they should be being led into. I never expect the state will do the right thing in that regard, but they should be in federal custody, because especially Brian Tully's fingers have been in every single step of both of these cases, Aiden's case and Karen's case. He's been at all of the interviews. He's done all of these things. He was on the phone with Ken Mello in the background at Lindsay Gaetani's house. You know, talk about entrapment. They literally were sitting on the phone listening to the conversation in the background. Like, that's horrific.
Yeah.
That you have Kate Peter talking to Brian Tully, and you have Lindsay Gaetani talking to Brian Tully, and Ken Mello as if they're their own personal police and prosecution force. Some of these people need to be in jail. They don't just need to be fired.
Wouldn't that kind of be wiretapping if you're listening to someone's conversation and you're really not letting people know? I mean, I know that's a law here in Massachusetts. Like, if I call you and I record the line and I'm talking, or I'm just talking to you and I'm not letting people know that there are other people present, especially law enforcement officers in the room, wouldn't that be kind of wiretapping?
I haven't heard any evidence
that statute is, but
I haven't heard any evidence that any of it was recorded.
Yeah,
and I think that's probably the difference. But there is this concept of the fact that, you know, we've introduced people to the chat, but not only that, like that in itself is not great and unusual by any means. Like, you don't see that.
Right.
Thank you, Adam.
Yeah, Adam says it is, but it's admissible evidence. It's scary.
So, but the real kicker is the series of text messages that preceded that, because this was a setup. I mean, this was literally, again, I'm going to be covering some more of that shortly. That's just a matter of making sure that things are rolled out in a way that they don't harm anybody's criminal case or whatever else. But I'll be covering that shortly. And it's shocking when you see conversations where people are saying like, oh, Mello is our best hope at this point.
Yeah.
You know,
it's, still lots going on there. Let's do this really quick. Real tea. I hate the way they're doing this now. I mean, why fix something that's not broken? Come on, YouTube. You know, let's do it a little bit better here. So just showing love and support to you and Jason. Love this channel, and you are an Earth Angel, sir. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate that. We have also signed up as a membership too. Thank you, Maria. I appreciate that. Let's do one more segment here on Sandra Birchmore. I'm going to share my screen here again. So again, we have Sandra Birchmore wrongful death suit on pause amid prosecution of ex-Stoughton officer. I'm going to read here. Let's see. I'm going to read here from the Sandra Birchmore wrongful death lawsuit on pause among prosecution. Ex-Stoughton officer goes in. A Norfolk Superior Court judge allowed to request by Sandra Birchmore's estate to pause its ongoing wrongful death lawsuit against Matthew Farwell and others on Wednesday. The pause comes in the wake of Farwell's indictment in federal court on a single charge of killing a witness. Federal prosecutors have accused him of sexually abusing Birchmore, beginning with when she was a teenager, and then killing her in early 2001. And not long after, she told him she was pregnant and she believes it was his baby. The lawsuit, filed by Birchmore's aunt in Darlene Smith in 2022, it names Farwell, his brother William, and Robert Devine, all whom are officers in Stoughton, as defendants, along with the town and its police department. A fourth police officer, Joshua Heel, was named in the suit, but a judge dismissed all claims against him. That's pretty fucking scary. In the motion request to stay, a lawyer for Birchmore's estate said significant overlap exists between the wrongful suit and the ongoing federal prosecution of Farwell. Because of a criminal case, the estate cannot conduct any discovery regarding Farwell and can't depose him, giving his Fifth Amendment rights. Proceeding the civil discovery, who also risked interfering with integrity of the criminal proceedings. The file reads, temporary stay of the civil action will serve as interest of justice and judicial economy by avoiding piecemeal litigation, inconsistent rulings, and unnecessary cost to the parties. So that's where we're at with Birchmore. I mean, I don't mind the pause. Let the criminal proceedings take its take its stand here. But it's you're the people that are involved in the civil lawsuit. It's going to pause all actions on them as well, deposing them. Waiting for this first this criminal trial with Farwell. And there was the report a couple of weeks ago that come to find out, through, I guess, tests that Farwell was not the father of Sandra Birchmore's baby. But I want people to remember this. This is not a defense for Matthew Farwell. He had the intention. He had the intention in his head to go over and kill Sandra Birchmore, with the speculation that it was his baby. So he had motive there. And I don't want people to lose sight of this. He killed her. There's no excuse that's going to draw this back and say, well, he really wasn't the father of her baby, so he had excuse. No, he killed her. He
didn't know.
Yeah, he didn't know. And it was the fact that, he was involved with her in these disgusting sexual relationships, or raping of a teenage girl. And he's not going to get off the hook on this one. I guess that's the greater point that I'm saying here.
Actually, Brian, while we have this, so two quick points. So one of them is we saw this lawsuit pausing in the Reed case, right? But it was on motion. A lot of times, if there is a criminal case going on, it is the defendant in the criminal case that will be making the motions to pause these things.
Yeah.
Because I also don't mind them, because it isn't right, because you can't compel someone to testify in the criminal proceeding. So if they testify in the civil proceeding, they could be putting themselves in jeopardy. You have the same protections there. In this case, it being requested by the plaintiff is great, because they obviously have a much stronger case if he is first convicted of murdering her before they proceed with their civil lawsuit, because then they have the backing of a jury verdict, which makes it more likely that they'll prevail in the civil case. And the two are not always combined. We saw in the OJ trial, he was acquitted and then lost the wrongful death lawsuit. Right. And I think that's what that's what the anti-Karen Reed people are hoping happens in her case, although it will be much harder, given that the jury rejected any suggestion that Karen Reed was responsible for the cause of John's death. So that's one point. But I really have to say something about this Sandra Birchmore thing, and about Farwell not being the father of the baby. We just made a great argument that he didn't know that he wasn't the father of the baby. Right. So it doesn't matter. The intent was the same. He was doing it for the same reason. But when it comes to the grooming that occurred of Sandra and others, that's the other part of this case that people don't see. There are other Sandra Birchmores that just didn't progress to the level of adult relationship and then being murdered. Right. And not just Farwell. The other names are there too when people talk about Divine, and these things are happening. I've seen people, usually people who I already know are disgusting, basically talking about that Sandra was promiscuous, or that these things were happening, or whatever else.
Still not an excuse.
Well, not only is it obviously not an excuse, but they're missing the entire point that when an adolescent female is basically groomed for these purposes, they create this scenario where that adolescent female then has a problem going forward and not understanding, love versus sexual expression. They end up in this scenario where they inappropriately think that they have to please their partner, and that's a sign that they love them. They basically took these people in their development stages of their brain and rewired it to their own disgusting advantage, and that you can't then later on go back and point that out as like a negative against her.
Right.
That kid didn't have a chance. That's what you taught her.
Yep.
So it's disgusting. And when I see people bring that up online, it's funny, because I said this because I don't normally get mad. Like, even if you see my back and forth with the trolls, I almost always have a smile on my face. But when it comes to this topic, and when people are looking at her and saying, well, she's not as much of a victim because of this. No, she's more of a victim because of it, because prior to, even if she didn't get murdered or whatever else, they did something that was going to affect her for life. And there are others in this very case that have that same issue where something happened to them that's going to affect them for the rest of their life, and it's going to affect all of their relationships going forward.
Yes.
And it's completely disgusting. And if anyone wants to argue with me about it, you can find me on Twitter at HW on your case, because I will slaughter you in the comments, metaphorically.
Yeah,
We
metaphorically.
talk a lot about murder. I got to be careful.
Yeah, Jesus. Yeah. Let's do this. I want to kind of back up a little bit, because there was something that I wanted to play according to Brian Walsh's case. And I don't know if everybody in this chat room has ever seen it, but if you haven't seen his initial arrest and his initial indictment, you got to watch this. I'm going to play about 2 minutes of this, and then we'll do a final thought and we'll wrap up here. Again, I want to thank Jason Broyles, not Haley Walbrick, on X for joining this inaugural edition of the Sunday 617 here on LTL Media. Great show so far. We had some really great chat. The segments have been phenomenal, and it was really nice to see Nathan Reed pop in the chat very beginning of the show. And I want to thank Jason Grant for jumping on this Sunday as well, and talking a little bit about the Buffah Zone. But let's do this. Jason Broyles. Let me pull this up. If anybody hasn't seen this, I want you to look at the way that Brian Walsh stares at this prosecutor. It is the most scariest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Here we go.
All right, everyone, welcome back here on Live Now from Fox. Brian Walsh in court. Let's listen in live.
1-8, you are charged on the first day of January 2023 with assault and to beat Anna Walsh with intent to murder that person. You're also charged with returning of a body hid without lawful authority, did willfully dig up or remove human remains. Not guilty, please be entered.
You understand those charges, Mr. Walsh? I do. I'll hear from the Commonwealth.
Yes, thank you,
Your Honor. We're not contesting bail or probable cause, so we would ask that he be released.
Thank you, Ms. Ryan, but I have to satisfy myself with probable cause. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. Lynn Beeland for the Commonwealth. The defendant is now before the court charged with murder of his wife, Anna Walsh, as well as disinterring of a body. Anna was 39 years old and the mother of 3 children, 2, 4, and 6. Anna worked in Washington, D.C., splitting her time weekdays between D.C. during the week and staying in her house in Cohasset, where she lived with the defendant and their 3 kids. On January 4th of 2023, Cohasset police received a call from her Washington, D.C. employee indicating that she was missing. She was due to report to work on January 4th, but did not appear. She had a flight on January 3rd from Logan to D.C., which she did not board. Cohasset police went to their house at Chief Justice Cushing Highway for a well-being check. It was only at this time, when they met with the defendant, that he first reported his wife missing. Defendant stated his wife left the house at approximately 6 a.m. on January 1st, New Year's Day. He stated she took an Uber or a Lyft to go to the airport, that she was returning to D.C. for work. Records were checked and there were no Uber or Lyfts to that house on January 1st. Defendant said he had not spoken to his wife since the early morning hours on New Year's Day. Cohasset police were granted permission to ping on his phone to locate her or her phone. Anna's phone indicated that it was stationary in the area of the Cohasset house on New Year's Eve until 3:14 a.m. on January 2nd. There were no outgoing calls made.
Yikes. Yikes.
I think the chat has that right. It's those eyes that's crazy. And yeah, not only are they dead, but like when he first comes in, you see him like he sizes up the room. They dart around, but they don't do it in the normal way where like people look around the room. They're like,
God.
You're watching and they go ping, they go in that direction. And then they go in that direction and you're like, what is going on here?
I'm going to play a little bit more here. I skipped ahead. I just want everybody to see this tight shot. Check this out.
With seats down and
Oh my God.
in the back of the car. The next day, a view of the Volvo showed his seats folded down, floor mats with some dirt, and the carpet appeared to show fresh vacuum streaks. When asked about the liner, the defendant said he threw it in the trash. Chemists later analyzed the car, and there was present blood in the car. On January 5th, review of the data from defendant's phone showed his phone traveled at 8 a.m. first to his daycare and then to Swampscott, where his mother resides. The phone traveled to the complex where his mother lives at 9:30 a.m., went for about 5 minutes around the building to the southeast corner. In the southeast corner of that complex is where there is a dumpster. The dumpster.
Oh my God.
That's a shot in the movie. There's no question that that's a shot in the movie. Oh, that shot is already written itself in the movie. They're gonna, whoever's portraying him is gonna be standing there behind that glass. That shot's in the movie. Bet me $100.
Ooh. And here's the crazy thing, and Aiden needs to write about this. When he was in jail, Brian Walsh was there, and he's
Yes, I
spoken
know.
about this quite a few times. He needs to write an article on that. I think he actually wrote him a note and said, "Hey, I'm Aiden Turtleboy Carney. If you ever want to talk," and got no response. But
That's
Yo,
probably a good move. Sometimes you got to get after it, you know. As a journalist.
Imagine them sitting down. He's like, "Hey, Brian, you want to play some cards?"
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
God. Oh my God. Yeah, like here, I love this. Like doll's eyes.
Yeah,
Like doll's eyes.
it's crazy.
Quint. It's Quint. Jason, any final thoughts here? Listen, you know, we're a couple weeks out, you know, post Karen Reed verdict. You know, everybody's just so much more things coming out and information. And you know, we're having all these interviews that are popping up now, and a lot more things that Aiden's now, you know, coming out and talking about. You know, more behind the scenes stuff. And look, you know, there's still a lot of work to do. You know, Brian Walsh, I think, is a case that I'm going to continue to follow here. Obviously, we want progress in Sandra Birchmore's case. I am going to be pretty soon, in the next few days, releasing another article about Enrique Delgado Garcia. I think I need to start putting some things on the record and setting the record there. If you've been following my writings, and I tell everybody here at LTLmedianews.com, just go to the Enrique tab, click on it, and you're going to get the truth of what's in those articles. You know, and I think I have to write a little bit more of a forward article here pretty soon and kind of set the record straight about a lot of things. And obviously last Tuesday, we had the grand jury reconvening in his case. Things are moving forward. And that is great progress to see that, you know, there is a team of legal people that are behind this and want the truth to come out in his case. And I can say, and I want to set this straight, there was nothing nefarious in the sense of what people would think nefarious happened, but there is a large group of people that need to be held responsible. And we're going to get to the bottom of this. Jason, any final thoughts before we end this edition of the Sunday 617?
Well, on that particular topic, I agree. Actually, it came up on Aiden's show last night briefly, and he was saying, like, you know, it's not like murder in the traditional sense that we're looking at, where somebody intentionally went and committed a homicide in front of a whole group of state police recruits or whatever else. But that does, as we often see when it comes to the state police specifically, it's not always the crime that you think it is. There's other underlying things that happen. And I think it's important to stay on top of that. And I really appreciate everything you've done for that family and continue to stay with that case.
Tell everybody I know everything.
Yes.
I know everything. I know everything.
You know, that theme at the beginning of the show where I talked about like things that we've seen or videos, I think people don't understand that, you know, they see as breaking news. Sometimes they see us talking and giving our opinions on the case on shows like this and doing all of this. But we generally know so much more than we can tell you about everything. And part of that is
very careful.
Right. And it's the same thing even with it doesn't matter what side of a case you're on, because I'm obviously covering Aiden's case and the things that are happening. And I know quite a bit about what led up to that. And there are things that I've seen that I just can't share yet. You just can't. I have to take my responsibilities very carefully. If things are off the record, they're off the record. If things are going to potentially impact someone's legal case, it could be sensationalist for me to drop it, and probably good for my fledgling career as a social media analyst or independent journalist or whatever. But I'm not going to step on the scale. I'm not going to insert myself into a story in a way that is going to be a problem. We saw that so often in the Karen Reed case with the involvement of Kate Peter and all of these things. And I'm not gonna do that. But I have plenty of stories to tell, and I'm definitely gonna tell them. I'm just gonna be careful about how I release it. And that's kind of how our world goes. We know this stuff, but we can't necessarily tell you.
Yeah. As far as I see someone in the chat talking about medical findings. As far as the medical findings, that has not been concluded yet. So I want to go on the record for that. But something clearly medical happened. And I'm going to tell you, people, just go read right at LTLmedianews.com. You can click on the Enrique tab and you can formulate your own opinions. I would not feed a bunch of bullshit out there. Again, I know what happened. I know everything. As far as the medical findings in it is inconclusive at this time. So that's all I can really say. And I'm going to do another recent write-up on this, and we'll keep following it. But let's trust the process. The case is in very, very good hands, and I truly believe that there will be justice for Enrique. So that's all I can really say. That's all I can really say. And it's not hard. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. The mainstream media has been really reporting this case pretty straight through after I started to dig in and find out what was going on behind the scenes. And I'm like, oh, well, yeah, they've got it. They've got it. So all the alternate theories that are out there, I wouldn't run with it. I've been pretty much writing straightforward information about this all along. So trust the process. It's in good hands. And it's going to come out. Everything will come out. So,
Brian, you just brought up one more thing that I feel like I need to comment on.
Sure.
When you talked about this, that the media has been covering it straightforward after you uncovered this, I think it's really interesting. And we saw it toward the end of the Karen Reed trial. We saw it with what Aiden, we went into this and they were all keeping Aiden at a 10-foot pole away from them and calling him the blogger and doing all of these things. And by the end of her trial, you had members of the mainstream media with integrity coming out saying nobody would know about this case if it weren't for Aiden Carney. It really is interesting how there's been this role reversal, and us in the alternative media are leading the space, and it's the traditional media, the mainstream media, that's following us instead of the other way around. So it's really interesting to see them change how they're covering things, because they're sick of getting scooped and beat over the head over and over and over again by the style of journalism that we're now doing, where you're on the ground, you're local, you're in person. That's been lost in journalism, right? Most local newspapers are gone. You have all of the, you guys are in Boston, you have the Boston papers, but for the most part, every city and town used to have a paper, and you'd have local news, and you don't have that anymore. So we are bringing news back into the community in a way, and especially on this show, since it's focused, I'm a regional guy, right? Like for me, although I cover, I follow true crime as a genre or whatever else, most of my coverage of the things that I'm doing, they're here. I cover local school board stuff and races and whatever else. And the allure to this case, the Karen Reed trial, to me was that, hey, this is happening right here. I'm from Massachusetts. This is all in my region. So I love this show, and I love the concept because it's going to give us a chance to really kind of keep those roots. And it's something that's missing in journalism right now. So congratulations for
thank you, Jason. I appreciate that. Your kind words. Listen, I'm just a guy with a microphone and a camera trying to do my thing and keep these topics in focus. We can't lose focus here now that Karen Reed's trial is over and done with. We still have a lot of work to do here in the state of Massachusetts. And, look, it's not going to be solely this case. If there's other things that pop up that need attention, maybe some issues that are going on in Boston, they get a huge drug problem there in Massachusetts. I'm open to talking about everything. If there's a guest, or someone that is a political candidate or whatever that wants to come in here, have a fully built out studio, come in, tell us your story. Let's fight back and get all these issues out there and start exposing, the cover-ups that are going on here in the state of Massachusetts. I'm open to that. Let's make it happen. That's why I want to devote my Sundays to doing this and really, making sure that we're cleaning. I don't want to sound corny, but cleaning up the streets here in Massachusetts and making sure that people understand of what's really going on here. And going back really quick before we end the show, it's funny, mainstream media always pushes us aside. They don't give us any credibility. It's like we kind of do all the dirty work and then they jump in at the end and take all the credit for, let's see, all the juror interviews that popped up and, and all of a sudden they were praising Aiden at the end and they want to talk to him and do all these, news stories and articles. Why don't you listen to us a little bit more? Because we're very in tune to what goes on in our communities here. Let's start getting independent media a little bit more credibility here. Again, I had Ted Daniel on the channel. I thought that was a huge leap and bound to have independent media cross with, mainstream media here in the state of Massachusetts. I respect Ted. I thought he played his reporting in the Karen Reed trial pretty much down the middle. And I think towards the end really came around and saw the evidence for what it was, just like those jurors, those 12 jurors on Victory Day is what I call it, and really came around at the end and said, you know what, Karen didn't do this. So, with that being said, again, I want to thank Jason Broyles, aka Not Haley Walbrick, for joining the show, the inaugural show here of the Sunday 617. I'm looking forward to keeping this theme going on our Sunday mornings, having these conversations of bigger things that are going on in and around the state of Massachusetts. Jason, any final words before we wrap?
No, I think that I think you just summed it up perfectly. I think at the end of the day, this is the new media, and we're leading the way on local news, and if the local news wants to ask us about it, then they should come along and chime in.
Jason, tell us about where they can find you. I just dropped your X handle in the chat. You're also getting your YouTube channel up and going again. Where can we find you on YouTube as well?
All I have to do is post a comment and it's going to come up, because now that they're showing the @ handle, my On Your Case is my YouTube channel, and you'll find 3 diverse videos there at the moment, as I was kind of testing the waters. But starting in the next week or so, I guess I have a little bit of an announcement. A lot of people have heard me talk about the concert production stuff that I do out there and working. And between having a full-time job owning a technology company and this independent media and the concert production, it's gotten to be a little bit too much. So I have just, and it's not allowing me to focus on this the way that I want to. So I have officially reached out to the people that I worked the concerts with and told them that I'm going to take the summer off, if not permanently, and ask them to reschedule my slots. And I'm going to devote more time to actually building up my platforms and,
That's awesome.
and taking a go at doing this. So
awesome. I love it. I'm there to support you. So if you need any help, and you're always welcome here as a guest host on the Sunday 617 or any other program that happens here on LTL Media.
Great.
You've been a huge advocate for this channel. You've contributed lots of hours here. I always enjoy the conversations, and it's nice when you come up and hang out in studio too. So I enjoy the company, and I really appreciate you.
Great. Thanks. Ditto.
Cool. Can you kick around backstage for like 5 minutes after the show?
Yes, sir.
All right, we're going to hit the outro. All right, everybody, that was the first edition of the Sunday 617. Again, I want to thank everybody for being here and checking the show out. We're going to try to keep these going on Sundays. I don't know. Maybe we do Sunday mornings for now. We'll check out the time slot to see what works. But that's it. And just remember that that we need to continue to focus on cases that cannot be left behind, that still need a lot of work in them. And again, if anybody is someone here local in Massachusetts, a politician, anybody in their local community, or anybody that has connection to any of these cases here, hit me up. If it's something valuable, we'll bring you on the show and you can talk about it and go from there. All right, everybody, I'm going to hit the outro. Thank you, everybody. Have an amazing Sunday. And I'll be back tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with the one and only Nan Gallagher for a sit-down conversation of who is Nan Gallagher. I'm really looking forward to that. And I'll talk to everybody soon. Everybody have an amazing Sunday. Take care. Bye-bye.